Hello, this is Everett Hill, and I have a resource that I want to share with you and kind of give you some instructions about how to use it. I've been using this really effectively in my studies and in my learning about the Bible and in really understanding what it's talking about. And I just wanted to share that with you. There's some great features about this website. It's called blueletterbible.org. There's also an app that it has, and I found it to be really useful, like I said, in learning about the Bible. So let's dive in here. There's a website that you can go to, and this is what it looks like here. And essentially, it's really set up in such a way that it's not really that great for actually just reading through the Bible normally. There might be a way to set it up to do that, but mostly what I do in here is actually go in and look at particular tools that it has that it does way better than a lot of other websites and a lot of other tools out there. So as you can see, each of the verses are on its own kind of separate area here. And I'm going to jump down to verse 31 and 32. And this one, I'm actually going to be teaching on this set of verses in a future video, so stay tuned for that. But essentially what you can see is there's a tools button right next to it. So the verse is talking about how Jesus gave them a parable and said that the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. And then, even though it's the smallest of all the seeds, it grew up to be larger than all the garden plants. It became a tree. So the birds of the air came and make their nests in its branches. And there's some really cool stuff that's packed in there. But what you can see is if you click on the tools button, you'll be able to see these different tools. One of them is the interlinear tool. And I love this because what it does is it takes each of these words and it allows you to go and dig a little bit deeper into them. So for example, in this case, I want to look at the word parable and really understand what does that mean in the original language? What is the author trying to say? What is Jesus trying to say in this moment? And so this is showing all the different examples where the word parable is used. This is also showing, some different teachings that are available for parable. So let me go back here real quick. And if you click on this number right here, this is the Strong's number. And what that is there was a person that made this kind of, basically for every word that's inside the Greek Bible and the Hebrew Bible, there's a code that identifies it. So if you click on that one, this is where it gets really interesting. If you click on it, it's essentially like a dictionary, and it can play the word. So, parabola.
Strong's G 3850 parabole.
Parabole. So we can play that. There's different examples of the ways that the word is used. That's not really that interesting to me because I don't know how to read Greek yet. But then it shows some other examples of how the King James Version, in this case, translates it as a figure, a comparison, a proverb. Most of the time, it's translated as a parable. This is the part that I love most about it is you can go in here and it takes things and says this is a parable. A parable is really like a juxtaposition, so taking two things and kind of jamming them against each other and saying, hey, this is a total different kind of thing. Like this thing is way different than that thing, and using hyperbole and that kind of stuff to really drive home a point. It's a metaphor. So this is just really a great tool to look into what exactly those words mean, how they're used across the Bible, and what they can mean in this particular context. So all of that ends up being really helpful and exciting to be able to go in here and do that. It may seem a little daunting at first to try and, say, oh, I'm going to go do some Greek stuff. But really, the great thing about this is if you're reading your Bible and you're going through a reading plan and you get to a particular verse and you're like, I wonder what the author's trying to say here. I wonder what that word means. I don't know what justification means. So you can go on to Blue Letter Bible. You can find that same verse that you were just reading through, and then you can go in and click on that word, and it will then describe to you what that word means. So that's really helpful. And I learned that a lot of stuff from that. For example, the name James from the letter of James, that actually more sounds like Jacob or Jacob. So when you hear the letter of James, really it's the letter of Jacob. And it's not that the James is wrong. It's just that that's his name sounded more like Jacob, and we just refer to him as James. Also, Jesus' name We refer to him as Jesus, but his name really sounded more like Yeshua or Joshua, and that means the Lord saves. We just call him Jesus because it's a special title that we have given to him and a way we describe him and keep him separate from the other Joshuas in the Bible, because there are a decent amount of references to Joshuas in the Bible. So that's all really helpful to be able to look into the words and really understand what does that mean here, what exactly is going on. Another one of my favorite features here is the commentaries section. So if we go into here, this gives you a bunch of commentaries that you would normally, you'd have to pay, and you get this gigantic stack, and it'd be really hard to go find the specific ones. The great thing about this is that they're all here specifically referencing Matthew 13:31. So some of these might be more general to, all of Matthew or Matthew 13, and sometimes it'll go to specific different verses in here. What'll also happen is it will find if there are different verses that are similar. So I think Mark 4 equates to Matthew 13 in the storyline, and so there's a commentary in here for that covers that, so you can see the two different versions of the account taken from there, or the two different times that Jesus gave that parable. I actually really like Chuck Smith's stuff and David Guzik's stuff. So if you have to pick from any of those, you can do that. But certainly check all this stuff out. There's a ton of great resources. I'm sure I just scratched the surface with it. But those are really my favorite things about Blue Letter Bible. If you have anything that you really like about Blue Letter Bible, or any other resources that you really enjoy, or resources that you want me to touch on, I'd be happy to do that. But stay tuned for additional videos. I'm going to be doing a video on this verse, talking about how the kingdom of heaven is like a tree that grows up and becomes a nest, or a nesting place for birds. And what exactly does that mean? Like, what is Jesus trying to say in this point? I really think that all of the Jesus parables and everything he said really means so much. And so when we dig into verses, when we really try to understand what's happening inside of them, when we study like this, we can really change our lives. And that's what this is about. This Blue Letter Bible in and of itself isn't going to do anything for us. We really have to decide that we're going to use these types of things as tools that help us to better understand what Jesus is saying and how he wants us to transform our lives and the lives of people around us, to love him most, to seek him and to glorify him and make him primary in our hearts. So I'm just so excited for all of us to just continue in our growth and learning how to use tools for the glory of God and to better understand who he is and who we are in his story. Until next time, talk to you later.